So, welcome back, everyone. I'm David Cooper, and with me once more is Arlen Brower, and we're here to talk to you about AI, which is, of course, on everyone's minds these days.
Sure is.
And so, in an academic context, would you like to take us through the hellish problems that we are facing here?
Okay. So I think part of the hellishness of this is that at the end of the day, we do need students to know how to use AI. So that makes it even more complex than just AI is bad. But I think one of the main problems is going to be, the fact that we need to actually teach people how to program.
We do. That is what we do.
if they're just going to AI, getting the answers, and not learning how to program, then obviously that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
So the way that I typically think about it is similar to the old math textbook where you have the answers in the back, and if you just go to those answers and you don't actually do the math, you don't learn the math, and you can't do the math.
They're always very tempting because they're there, and if you have access to the answers, then you convince yourself that you don't need to work them out because they're there. The whole point of the task from your naive perspective is to have the answers.
Yes.
Whereas if you think about it for a moment, it's not to have the answers, it's to work the answers out. So how good is generative AI at the moment in doing the kinds of things that we ask students to do?
It's a good question, and it's definitely one that has been evolving very quickly, especially over the last year. But the answer is, to some degree, it's at least as good as the person using it, in the sense that there's the usual title that gets thrown around of like prompt engineer. In a sense, I feel like it's similar to kind of like Google Foo, right? Like how good you are at Googling something means it's how good you are at getting an answer from Google. But I think prompt engineering is very similar in that way, that you do have to be careful and specific, but ultimately you can pretty much take things that we're throwing in first year assignments, give it to Gen AI, and it will spit out a pretty good assignment. And even I guess even like 2 years ago, when it was a little bit earlier on, we were doing this and we were saying, okay, first semester assignments are actually pretty vulnerable to this. So
you had an interesting point there where it's what people get out of Gen AI depends to some extent on what they put into it. Is Gen AI are we risking making people? Is AI risking making people worse at using AI?
How do you mean?
Because if we don't teach them the fundamental skills, then they'll have less access to those fundamental skills. And I feel like if you know more to begin with, you get more out of it.
Yeah, so kind of, if you have that algorithmic thinking, you're able to get a better idea of how to use it.
Exactly.
But if you don't have that, I think that's absolutely something that's very true.
Yeah. So we need to teach people the fundamentals so that they can use AI in a sense.
Yeah.
Among other things, of course.
Which again, it's funny because one of the conferences that I went to earlier this year, so I think that was Latency, had a very strong AI focus, as you might imagine, and one of the guest speaker there, she had said that she has contacts that have startups, and they're all telling her that they need people who can use AI, especially in a startup context, right? You have to, productivity is a big deal.
Yes.
If you have a worker who can't use AI, they're not as productive as the others, and therefore it's a liability.
What does it take to give somebody those skills? Is it just a matter of throwing them at ChatGPT or one of the other ones, or Copilot, and saying practice? Or are there some specific things they need to know.
So I think really it kind of comes down to the one skill set that we've always tried to emphasize to our students and haven't really been good at, I guess, following up on or assessing or enforcing, which is testing. Because a lot of what you're really doing is effectively quality assurance for an intern coder that is just really, really fast.
That's actually a really good point, because testing has always been immensely important, but if you have the ability to kind of auto-generate the answer or auto-generate the code, but in a flawed way, then testing is the thing that's going to make the difference between having a pile of crap and having a working system.
Yeah, because you want to make sure something works, and AI, in some ways, even just people in general, are not great at thinking about edge cases.
Yes.
So, from a testing point of view, if you're thinking of those edge cases and you're building what you have with those in mind, you're going to get a better product out of, whether it's a human, whether it's AI.
So that's really where the human effort is going, and more so now that we have easier code generation going on. So, getting back to academia, I guess, what kinds of assessments are most vulnerable? Is it just the first year coding stuff, or is it first year coding assignments, or is it other things as well?
So I think first semester assignments are definitely the most vulnerable because they are the simple things. They are targeting the fundamentals, and AI is really good at doing exactly that. As assignments get more advanced, there is a little bit of a hurdle there. There is a little bit more of you have to understand what it's generating and whether or not that's actually the valid, piece of code. But it is getting a lot better with more and more complex things.
Is it getting better in a way that requires less understanding from the point of the prompter, or is it getting better assuming that you have a decent amount of knowledge to start with?
It's actually getting better, even for novice prompters.
Okay.
There's definitely cases where I've played around with it, and it will come back to me saying, I want you to clarify some requirements for me.
That's very interesting, yeah.
Right? So it's saying, here, just give me, answer these 10 questions, just copy and paste it back to me, and we can get going.
So it's acting as a kind of a software engineer in a little sense.
Exactly.
Or I guess it's been prompted to do that by the companies that have created it. So what do we do? Do we hide away everything? Do we hide in tests and make everything invigilated? Is there a space for assignments?
I think so. But I think for a fundamental level, we probably are going to be relying a little bit more on tests. I don't like the idea of making people write out code.
Yeah.
It's a little bit... It doesn't feel right.
You're right. It's inauthentic. I thought a little while ago about how we could do a large scale test or exam with hundreds of computing devices, and that turns out to be a very complicated problem to solve itself.
Yeah. Of course, there's been things that have tried to address that, such as Iris and other online invigilation software, but those aren't perfect. They tend to be more annoying for students to use. I think many students would probably argue that they would just rather write code than have to deal with these software issues.
A lot of people find there's some privacy, or think of it as a privacy violation, I guess. And a lot of them are not sure, from what I can tell, when they're going to be flagged for misconduct as a result of using it. So, if we look at non-invigilated forms of, non-tests anyway, sometimes it's suggested that we should have more interviews, what we sometimes call viva voces.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
So I think Vivas do tend to work pretty decently, but I think there is kind of a scalability issue with them. One of my experiences with the Viva sort of format was with our intelligent agents unit. And when there's over 100 students and it's just you and one other person conducting these interviews, then that gets pretty hard pretty fast. Like, it's not necessarily hard, but as you're going through it, it is a little bit mind-numbing. It's
you've got a limited amount of mental energy for this.
Exactly. And if you're doing this 8 hours a day, 5 days straight, that's pretty grueling.
That is very intense.
So the obvious answer is get more people to do these interviews. But at some point, you don't have those people to get anymore.
You're right, and you also run into moderation issues when you've got a lot of different people doing it.
Exactly. And there's the other problem, too, of some people are just really good at talking about their code.
Yes. They are.
And
it's a natural skill, I guess, for some people.
So there's plenty of folks out there that even before AI was a problem, they could be awful coders, but they could really talk about it.
Yes.
And maybe the actual value that they're adding is a bit dubious. I do know some folks in that category that actually did make great consultants because they did have a good big picture overview of how software should work. Their individual skill, not so great, but as project managers, not too bad.
Enough. If they can understand other people's code, that is still a skill of one sort.
But I think when it comes to academic integrity, and we're actually looking at, is this yours? Do you understand the content? Have you met the learning outcomes that we want you to achieve?
Could you have actually created it yourself?
Exactly. It's a lot more difficult. I even think of it in terms of languages. I can read French pretty well, but if you ask me to speak it,
it's a bit different,
I don't have that ability to kind of reach back and say, these are the words in the sequence that I need to throw at you.
It's a different skill. So do we need to aim for assignments that are just complex enough that they can't completely be gamed by generative AI?
I think we're going to lose that race.
You reckon? There's no level of complexity that...
I think there becomes a point that if it's too complex for an AI to handle, it's probably too complex for our students to handle.
Interesting.
And I think early on we've been able to get away with that complexity, but more and more I'm thinking that AI is going to pretty much be able to, from a coding point of view, be able to do the rote task of actually programming. Even when you start bringing in design considerations, you can ask AI, what do you think about this pattern or that pattern or this design versus this design, and it will give you a pretty convincing answer.
I've seen a study. Well, I haven't read it, but I've seen the headlines for it. That's looked into. I think it might have been published by Apple, but looked into the complexity of certain tasks that AI has been given, like little problem-solving tasks, like the Towers of Hanoi. And at least when they tried this, there was a level at which it started to basically not perform the task at all.
Right.
I think it could handle about 5 or 6 or 7 layers of the Towers of Hanoi, and beyond that point, it started to completely fail. So that's why I'm thinking that there might be a point that it can't handle quite all the requirements. I'm sort of vaguely hoping that there might be two different kinds of complexity. One that AI can't handle and one that
It's
still
an
within the
interesting
bounds of-
thought.
Yeah.
I do feel like if you put 5 layers of Towers of Hanoi in front of our students,
Yeah.
they would start to completely fail too.
It's a good point. As a task to be done by human beings, Towers of Hanoi is actually quite tricky unless you've got like a pen or paper and everything.
Like, yeah, I ask my second year students, how do they feel about recursion?
Yeah.
And most of them don't like it. I think Towers of Hanoi is such an interesting example because it's so ingrained in
Yes.
all of, like, if you are learning recursion, you learn Towers of Hanoi.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people actually learn recursion that well from Towers of Hanoi.
You're right. It's not that intuitive. So we're, I guess we're gonna have to keep an eye on this space
Yep,
and come up with some solutions at some point, or just make everyone sit in gigantic exam halls forever.
Yeah, I think there's another interesting thing to, that you brought up earlier on that I think we'll have to circle back to at some point, which is the issue of privacy too.
Yes.
So it's an interesting space in and of itself.
Yeah. But on that note, I think we need to wrap it up.
All right.
But that's been slightly depressing, but also quite interesting, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's all doom and gloom, though, because from an academic perspective, it's difficult for us, in a sense. But at the same sense, we do need students to start embracing and using these tools in at least an ethical sort of way.
That's fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right.
That has been I almost said Buff Compute. I feel like that's an entirely different podcast.
The Buff Compute.
The Buff Compute, yes.
That could be our side project.
That's the 80s aerobic.